Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peace Podcast. This is season 3, episode 10. Just give me an unburdened heart, whatever that looks like. And so there was a time in my parenting journey when I was also in a toxic relationship where I felt like everybody was pulling from me. Like the kids needed so much from me. And at the time, I had a 1-year old. So I was nursing him, but cooking meals for the kids and helping with homework and cleaning the house and doing all the things. And whenever I was with that partner, he just had an expectation that I was supposed to just do everything because he commuted and he was at work for extended hours. And so I felt very burdened by having to do all the things. And so there was this point in my parenting where when my kids would ask me to do something, I would get annoyed that they couldn't do it themselves. And we're talking things that they necessarily shouldn't have been doing on their own at that point because of their age. But just the idea of feeling like that was just one more thing that one more person was asking me to do, and it was just one more person in my life who needed me as opposed to feeding back into me. And my cup was super empty, but also they were children. So there wasn't a way to just pass the buck on to somebody else. And my heart was just so burdened, and I was dealing with so much resentment because it felt like I had this overarching responsibility to give to others, even if it meant neglecting myself. So when people would talk about self-care, or when people would talk about, spending time with friends or doing the things that feed you, I was like, where's the time for that? Because I'm so overburdened with all of the things that everybody needs from me. And don't we do that often? Where we consider ourselves last, but then we exhaust ourselves with the feelings of resentment from having to do so much. And then that bleeds over into the people in our lives because we're expecting them to do more and be more and become more so that they can take the weight off our shoulders, not because we want them to have to do everything on their own. But also, there's a piece of us who maybe in our own childhood, we had to do things on our own and we had to do things that probably weren't kid tasks. I'm not talking chores here. I'm talking things that are like, taking care of your younger siblings or, just the parentified child. Perhaps if we had that experience, there's a piece of us that gets a little bit annoyed that our kids can't just figure it out on their own because we had to. And that again builds this contempt and resentment because even though you want to provide a different life for your children, you still feel a tinge of envy because that life wasn't provided for you. And so, what contributes to that feeling of having a burdened heart when you're serving others and feeling the contempt and frustration because you are consistently serving others? Something that is a huge part of this is that when you're helping, when you're well, it's a contribution. So when I feel content on the inside and I'm helping other people, I'm contributing to them by choice. I'm contributing to the household by choice. I'm contributing to their play by choice. So if I have, a significant other who I'm cooking for or packing their lunch for them, and I'm doing it from a place of wellness, I'm contributing to their life. I don't feel an expectation that I have to do that thing. So it's not a burden or an obligation. It just feels like I am doing something to help. And I can do that from a place of abundance because I too am well. The things get a little dicey when we aren't well because our well is dry, when we are consistently saying yes, when we are consistently feeling like everything is our responsibility. And let's face it, when we're consistently putting those burdens onto ourselves because we feel like in order to be a good insert blank here, wife, mother, job title, whatever it is, that there's this laundry list of things that we should be completing in order to become that good or perfect version of that thing. But when you help people, when you are doing things for them or doing the things that they've loaded onto you and you're in an unwell space, it is always going to feel like a burden because your body knows and your brain knows and your soul knows that you're neglecting you to do for other people. And though that might feel like a prize to be won for months and maybe even years and sometimes decades, there's a point where you're going to reach a wall of burnout that no amount of self-care in that moment, no amount of meditation and yoga and breath work in that moment is going to be able to in real time undo the years of neglect that you have served yourself. And so when the idea is that we deal with this thing before we get to the point where we hit that wall. When we start to notice the unwellness inside of us, when we start to notice that every time somebody asks us to do something, we feel excessively frustrated by their need. When we start to notice that we're snapping at people who want something from us, and in our brains, the narrative sounds a lot like, oh my God, no one around here can do anything for themselves. That's when we know that we're operating from a place of unhealed unwellness and that we have now transitioned our contribution into a burden. And I think that we fall into this trap because we turn ourselves on autopilot and don't even realize we're doing it. So we wake up in the morning knowing that we have this list of things that need to happen. No one else is going to help us do that list. And if they are, they're going to do the certain things that they're doing, but my list is still large. And I'm just going to continue to arduously push through that list so that everything gets finished. I remember being in a space where I was a single mom and I didn't have the benefit of having someone inside of my home. And so I had a teenager and I had a 3-year-old, and it was all on me, but it was also all on me. So the weight was heavy, but there also wasn't someone else who was able-bodied that could do the brunt of the labor. So I knew going into that space, I had wrapped my brain around everything that's adult-ish is going to be mine. So there wasn't a feeling of resentment or burden, even though I felt tired and weighted, because I knew that in order for it to happen for them, I was the only one that they could count on. Plus, at nighttime when they would go to sleep, there was still some time for me to maybe read a book or, do a workout or sit with myself, and I didn't have someone else to be accountable to. The time when the switch flipped from contribution to burden was when I had an able-bodied person in the house with me who I felt should be able to carry a part of the burden, and they didn't. And so the resentment started to build because I'm thinking, I'm an adult, you're an adult, but one of these things does not look like the other. There is a very intense burden being placed on me, and the other adult in the household gets to pick and choose what they want to do or what they feel like doing, but they don't have that narrative inside of them telling them what they should do. They don't have a feeling that there are things that they should be doing to carry half of their load. And it's another space where being unequally yoked is frustrating, because unequally yoked spiritually is frustrating, right? Because you feel like you're always pulling that other person toward God and you're pulling them toward scripture, but it's holding you back. But the whole concept of being unequally yoked came from the field when the oxen were pulling plows. And if both oxen weren't pulling at the same rate, speed, and strength, then one was holding the other back and production was slowed. And that same thing happens when you're in a household where you feel like there's another adult in the household who should be helping and they're not doing it. And that's when my switch flipped to contempt, because it was very painfully obvious that my time was not valued the same as everyone else's, that my presence was a transactional benefit to other people, but they didn't appreciate or value the relationship that should happen inside that presence. And it happens to us all the time. Like if you sit and think about why you feel that contempt in your heart right now, why your heart feels burdened by the amount of things that you have to do, you're going to understand that it's because you are in an unwell spot because the people around you are not valuing what you do, nor are they placing any expectation on themselves. The other place that it happens often with me is when taking care of my youngest, because the court can order child support as much as it wants to, but if the other parent just decides that they're not going to pay it, that's an arduous process, and it's long and it's painful and it's frustrating. And so you feel burdened, and the burden sets into your heart when the kid is sick, you take them to the doctor. If they need to stay home, you stay off of work. If they need anything from anyone, you're the one to consistently do it. Oh, and by the way, all of the finances are yours too. That creates contempt. That creates an unwell heart. And if the circumstances don't change, then how do you unburden your heart? If the circumstances and the people inside of those circumstances aren't going to shift, change, or move, then what are you in control of that you can be doing for yourself to unburden your heart? Because you can't walk around with a heart that serves but feels resentment while they're serving, because that's not what serving is. It's doing with joy. But also, you could be faking your joy because you know that you're supposed to be doing it with joy. So that's just another layer of expectation that you've placed on yourself. But the thing about it is that when everybody talks about that mask, right, they say, if you're on an airplane and the mask is put on your child first, then there's the potential that your child survives and you don't. And they talk about this often. But that is so true and yet so difficult to do. You have to plan it. You have to carve out the time in your day every day to plan to take care of yourself first. Because if you don't take care of yourself first and no one else is taking care of you and feeding back into you, then your well will certainly run dry. There's no other way that it can happen. And so you have to sit with yourself for long enough to discover and to plan with yourself what it looks like to take care of yourself. And so sometimes it might look like to you giving yourself 15 minutes to scroll on your phone uninterrupted. And sometimes that means you have to hide in the bathroom from your kids for 15 minutes when you get home from work to get that time of uninterruption. Now, I will say that that feels like a distraction for me, and it's not dealing with the core wounds that are actually present, but at least you're giving yourself some time to care for yourself first. I used to do that, and I used to think that it was beneficial to me. And if you feel like it's beneficial to you, there's no judgment or shame here. But now what I do is I know that that place is a safe space. No one's going to come into the bathroom. I mean, they'll come to the door and they'll ask me a million questions, but I've, for the most part, trained them that when I'm in the bathroom, you leave mom alone. And so then I started coming home, using the bathroom, keeping myself locked in that bathroom, changing into comfortable clothes, doing a skincare routine, washing my face, because y'all know that when I don't know if you're anything like me, but if you have on makeup, as soon as I get home from work, that's the first thing I want to do is take it off because you're like suffocating under it by a certain point. So I wash my face, I change my clothes, I get myself ready. And then once I've done that 15 minutes for me, then I can say, because my youngest likes to work out, he likes to run on the treadmill for a little bit. So then I go downstairs and I say, okay, we're going to work out together for 15 minutes before I cook dinner. Now, that 15 minutes that he needed me used to feel like another obligation. Oh, great. He wants to work out, and now I have to do one more thing. But when I started to incorporate the take care of yourself first, and I came home and I changed my clothes and I washed my face and I did it slowly, without rushing through, without feeling like I had to get somewhere by a certain time, just giving myself a full 15 minutes to just be, that small act has shifted what I do for the rest of the evening. So yes, I still do that workout with him. Yes, I still have to cook dinner. Yes, I still have to get him in the tub and get him ready for bed and help people with homework and talk to my daughter about, girl, let me tell you what happened at school today, because that's the conversation that we get every day. But those have tos slowly turn into able tos because I'm giving myself some time. I'm taking care of me first. And then what ends up happening is your need to give out of obligation will end, and your resentment and your annoyance and your contempt will slowly start to fade because you're doing things for you. Now, I know that might not be everybody's story, but there are things that you can build into your day. I started with that small one, but there are things like, I do a workout in the evening after my kids are asleep, but I also give myself the option to do yoga instead. I give myself the option to lay and rest instead. I don't place that high expectation on myself that I have to work out every day. Now, sometimes I know that my level of anxiety is really high, and so I'm going to need that workout, and I'll do it even when I don't feel like it. But I give myself the option because I know that that's taking care of me first. And then I give myself a little bit of time in the evening to, after that workout, it's actually the nighttime, to after that workout be able to decompress before I allow anybody else to need anything from me. The other thing that I do is wake up way before everyone else. And waking up way before everyone else allows me to listen to a podcast or to listen to music in the morning while I'm getting ready. And that to me feels like taking care of me. It feels like giving me a little piece of something back so I don't feel so annoyed by having to do for everybody else. And the last thing that I really do that's a huge thing for me, because I have not done it in the past, is give away the things to my kids that they are actually able to do on their own. So if you want a snack for after school and you want to put that in the car or in your backpack, you're responsible for getting that snack. If you need water or you need something else put into your water bottle, you are very capable of making that happen. And so instead of me feeling like I needed to be the one to do hair and brush teeth and get snacks and water and everything prepared, I started to look at the task list and delegate those tasks to the people who they were for and who could learn to do them for themselves. And what that does is it gives you the slow release model that should be happening for your children, and it allows them to start to do the things that they should be doing for themselves on their own, so that eventually when you're not standing there over their shoulder, or when they get to an age where they should be doing pretty much everything that is theirs by themselves, that it frees your time up even more. So you're training them so that they no longer need you. And that feels scary because you want to be needed as a mom or a parent. But the idea is that your kids will be able to leave. And the only way to teach them how to do that is to delegate those tasks to them. And not only does it benefit them to know how to separate and do their own laundry or help do the dishes or cook some meals, but it also benefits you because when you feel overwhelmed, you can have them do some of the things so that it's not all on you. And at first, it feels like you're playing a supervisory role, and that feels like you're just giving yourself one more thing to do. But eventually, you're able to release after they've gone through the 90-day training process. You're able to release it, and it unburdens your heart so that you feel more capable of doing the workout with them or playing basketball with them. And that doesn't feel like another thing that you have to do. It feels like a thing you get to do. And speaking from somebody who felt the have to do for years, I'm telling you that if you continue to walk through life with a burdened heart and serve without the joy, serve with contempt, serve with obligation, your well will run dry and you will hit a wall. And once you hit that wall, it's going to be 20 times more difficult to get yourself back to the space where you want to be, to enable yourself to do things and be happy while you're doing them and feel fulfilled by doing them, because you've gotten so far deep into that hole that it's going to be difficult to get back to the other side of it. So if you find yourself in a space today where you are serving with a burdened heart, I encourage you to write down the areas that you could be taking care of yourself first. And then write down a plan for how you might make that happen and start there. And once you start there, you will start to uncover that the more you give to yourself, the more you feel like you are helping as a form of contribution instead of helping as a form of burden. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe to all my pages. And if this message resonated with you, remember that information gained and kept to yourself is selfish, but shared with other people may just be the thing that they need to release themselves from the burden that's keeping them in a place of um, hostage situation where they can actually free that up and be free to move and live in the world the way that they were created to be. So please share this message with people that you think might need to hear it. And remember to like and subscribe to the page and share the page with whoever you feel like will gain something from it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I thank you so much every day for listening to my testimony and hope that it helps you to break free from the bondage that you're experiencing. Thank you, and I'll see you again next time.